Welcome back everyone, it is Eric from Rare Candy, and today, as you can see, I am breaking down another Lost Origin deck profile, and this time we are finally going to be checking out the brand new, very hyped Giratina VSTAR. You know, it's the main mascot of the set for pretty good reason, so you know we had to cover this on the channel at some point here. And today, this version is going to be largely the Lost Zone engine based version of the deck, for lack of a better term, which I do think is going to be one of the more widely played versions of Giratina. But I do think there are actually a few different directions you can take it as an attacker. So at the end of this video, if you are hungry for some more Giratina content, I actually dropped a bonus article exclusive on Patreon detailing some additional ways you can play Giratina, you know, some additional card inclusions for this list, but also another bonus deck list over there. So if you guys want to learn about how to support the channel and get some bonus content in the process, of course, I will have a link down below in the description today. But with all that out the way, let's jump into today's deck and see how it's going to look. So kicking things off, we have 4 copies of the brand new Comfy. So definitely going to be the backbone of this whole sort of Lost engine that decks are going to be playing after Lost Origin. And mainly because of this ability here, it says you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you get to keep one and you pitch the other into the Lost Zone, which normally would be kind of bad since you can't get stuff out of the Lost Zone. But of course, as you'll see throughout this deck, we want cards in the Lost Zone. It's kind of what makes our whole deck tick. But getting into our actual attackers in the deck, of course, first we have 3 copies of Giratina V. We do need this to evolve into the V-Star, but honestly, the attacks on Giratina V aren't that bad either. The first one for just a colorless energy, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you get to keep 2 and put the others into the Lost Zone. So ideally, you don't want your Giratina V in harm's way, but if you are kind of forced to in the early game, this attack can at least help you get set up a little bit better. And it does have Shred as well, which is great for a Grass, Psychic, and Colorless. Goes through any effects on your opponent's active, so those pesky Miltanks and some of those walling Pokemon like that aren't going to be much of an issue for your Giratinas. But a little bit more importantly, of course, we also have 3 copies of the brand new Giratina V-Star. Goes all the way up to 280 HP, which is fantastic. No weakness as usual with Dragon Pokemon. But the first attack for a Grass Psychic Colorless does a whopping 280, but you do have to put 2 of your energy into the Lost Zone whenever you use this attack. But this actually does kind of help our V-Star power, and 280 damage is an insane amount of damage. That's going to knock out opposing Giratina V-Stars, Palkia V-Star, Arceus V-Star, really any V-Star running around. And that's without the help of something like a Choice Belt or any damage modifiers. But this isn't the only good attack it has. Its V-Star power is also pretty solid for just a Grass and Psychic. If you have 10 or more cards into the Lost Zone, your opponent's just knocked out. So that is a good bit of cards. We do have to get into the Lost Zone, but we have our Comfies, we have the new Colress, which we'll show off in a little bit. We also have the attack we just looked at on Giratina that puts energy into the Lost Zone. So Giratina is definitely the star of the show here, but we do have a couple of backup attackers for certain situations too. The first one's going to be the brand new Cramorant. So this guy has an ability that says if you have 4 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you ignore its attack cost. And then its only attack just hits for 110. So this doesn't seem like a whole lot, but honestly guys, we don't really want to use Giratina's big main attack on puny single prize Pokemon like Drizzile, Sobbles, or even opposing Comfies if we're in a mirror match. And most of the time, we're going to be able to set up Cramorant a good bit quicker than Giratina, so this just gives us a nice early game attacker to kind of lean on while we're trying to get our Giratina set up. And our other backup attacker in the deck is going to be also the brand new Sableye here. Its first attack doesn't do a whole lot, just 1 for 20, but the second attack, much like with Giratina's V-Star power, does require you to have 10 cards in the Lost Zone. But if you do, you get to place 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. Not only is this a way to maybe clean up some knockouts, maybe on Pokemon V Max that we might go against, but also in the late game, sometimes if you just have a single prize left, benching Sableye with an energy just gives you game. As an example, if you are in some sort of mirror match, your opponent's probably going to have at least 1 Comfy on their board at all times. And if you get down to just a single prize, you slap down Sableye with a Psychic Energy, and now you just kind of stole the game, and you don't even need a boss's order sometimes. Up next, we have a copy of Radiant Greninja in the deck. Very important card for that Concealed Cards ability. Of course, guys, you're probably familiar with this thing by now. You discard an energy from your hand, and you get to draw 2 cards. We don't play a whole lot of draw supporters, so we are relying on cards like Comfy and also the Radiant Greninja to sort of offset our lack of a ton of draw supporters in this deck. And the last Pokemon we have in the list is going to be a copy of Lumineon V to allow us to search our deck for a supporter whenever we bench it. And speaking of supporters, up first for those, we do have 4 copies of the brand new Colress's Experiment. Very important card for the deck. Much like in the case of Comfy, this is going to be one of the main ways we're trying to pitch away cards into the Lost Zone. So we get to look at the top 5 cards of our deck, we keep 3 and put the other 2 into the Lost Zone. So even though the draw power we have here isn't super aggressive, between this, the Radiant Greninja, and the Comfy, we should still be able to see a good bit of cards every turn. Up next from there, we also have 2 copies of Boss's Orders, pretty self-explanatory, just to gust up stuff, choose what we want to attack into. And the only other supporter we're playing in the deck is just going to be 1 copy of Birdkeeper. So much like with Colress, we get to draw 3 cards, but this one also forces us to switch into another Pokemon. This does allow us to use multiple Comfies in a turn, and especially if we do start with something like a Giratina V and we can't get it out of there with a scoop up net usually, something like Birdkeeper might be able to help us out with that, and we can search it out with our Lumineon V as well. And our stadium of choice for this deck, of course, is going to be Training Court. We are playing the Radiant Greninja, which is going to be discarding energies throughout the course of the game. So Training Court is going to allow us to get those back. And we also do have kind of like a funky multi-energy attack cost here. So being able to cherry pick the exact energy that we need to finish powering up our Giratina is definitely going to be a nice utility to have. But digging into our item cards, up first we have 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass, which is a card I really do love in this engine. So of course you can only play it on the first turn of the game, but you search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon, put them on your bench. We're looking for a ton of Pokemon on turn 1. Ideally, we want at least 2 Comfies, a Radiant Greninja, and 2 Giratina Vs. And Battle VIP Pass is just the best way at making sure we can find all these Pokemon. And the good thing about this deck too is that even though it is a card that is pretty much useless after turn 1 of the game, as we are digging through our deck with cards like Colress and Comfy, we can just pitch away those excess copies into the Lost Zone. Up next from there, we have 3 copies of Ultra Ball in the deck just to find more of our Pokemon, but of course with this one, we have to discard 2 cards from our hand in order to do so. But I am also still choosing to play 1 copy of Quick Ball in the deck. This has kind of been like the sweet spot I've found for a lot of these Lost Zone based decks. Sometimes the 2 card discard from Ultra Ball feels just a little bit steep in certain instances. And even though Quick Ball can't get our V-Stars, being able to grab any other card in our deck is still nice and help us save some resources if we're trying to get set up. Up next from there though, we have a very important new card that is going to be the brand new Mirage Gate. So up until now, other than our Giratina's attacks, we've had very little reason to want to get cards in the Lost Zone, but this is the card that we really want to pitch away cards for. So this card only works if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone, but once you do, you can play this card and accelerate 2 energies of different types to your Pokemon in any way that you like, which is great because our Giratina has a really annoying attack cost, so we definitely need some help at getting our Giratinas going a little bit easier. Going on from there, we have 4 copies of Scoop Up Net. We can pick up one of our non-Pokemon V or GX Pokemon, put it back into our hand, and this is most notably to use cards like Comfy, or I'm sorry, to reuse cards like Comfy or Radiant Greninja whenever we want to use their abilities more than once in a turn. So kind of just a long-winded way of saying it's another switching card for our deck. But speaking of switching cards, from there we have 2 copies of Air Balloon. That's going to reduce our retreat cost by 2, which is great for Giratina V and V-Star since it has a 2 retreat. But most notably, we probably want these on our Comfies just to be able to freely retreat them. We also have 2 copies of just good old-fashioned switch in the deck, since we do want to switch to multiple Comfies in a turn. And we also have 1 copy of Escape Rope to round out our switching options. So of course, guys, it's the same as switch, but our opponent also does have to switch in the process. From there, we have a copy of Ordinary Rod in the deck. So of course, we can get up to 2 Pokemon and or basic energy and shuffle them back into our deck, which is important since we have Mirage Gate that accelerates energy specifically from deck. And being able to have a way at recovering some energy and make sure these still work throughout the game is a really important effect to have in this deck. The only other tool card we're going to be playing in the deck is going to be 1 copy of Tool Jammer. So if this is attached to our active Pokemon, we are going to shut off the effects of other tool cards, which is going to be good at shutting off things like Big Charms if our opponent is trying to tank against our Giratina V-Star's attacks. And also can be good against opposing Giratina decks, since things like Air Balloon won't work on those Comfies. And our last trainer card is going to be 1 copy of the brand new Lost Sweeper. So just a little bit more tool hate in the deck here, but this is a brand new card where we have to pitch away a card in our hand into the Lost Zone to use it, but we can take a Stadium or Pokemon tool card in play and put that into the Lost Zone as well. So this can be a way at bumping Path to the Peak if we don't have our Training Court, or again, if we don't have our Tool Jammer. This can be another way we can get rid of things like Big Charm, Choice Belt, Air Balloon, a lot of those popular Pokemon tool cards that are running around right now. And then for our energies, we have 5 Grass Energy, 5 psychic energy, and then 3 water energy as well. Now, the water energy in this list might look a little bit confusing, but actually did solve one of the issues that I was sometimes running into with these Lost Zone based decks. Sometimes I found myself in the mid to late game when I was trying to use Mirage Gate. I would search my deck and I would just have, let's say, 3 grass energy left. And I could only grab just the one single copy because it does force you to take different types of energy. And by playing the 3rd basic energy type in the deck, it actually somehow makes your Mirage Gates more consistent. But also by playing the water energies, this does give us access to not only attack with Radiant Greninja, but if we want to get that Lumineon V off the field, we can actually attack with that and shuffle it back into our deck. So again, guys, I know it seems like a weird inclusion, but I feel like it's been working really well so far in my testing with this deck. But as you can see, that's where I'm at right now with the Giratina VSTAR deck. And overall, I am feeling pretty good about this list that we have right now. So if you are just looking for a starting point to begin testing this archetype, I think this is a great baseline to start working from. But that being said, guys, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I think there are still a number of other card inclusions you could consider, as well as some other ways entirely that you can run Giratina VSTAR. So if you do want to learn about that bonus article I dropped on Patreon, like I mentioned earlier, that is going to be linked down below in the description. But if you guys did enjoy today's content, as always, remember to leave a like on the video. And if you're feeling a little bit extra generous and want to take that support to the next level, like I mentioned, you can become a patron, or you can pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. Links to everything will be down below in the description. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.